The rain came down in furious sheets that morning, hammering the windows of the tiny mountain cabin like 1,000 impatient knocks. Inside, the fire had long since died out, leaving only a few smoldering embers struggling for life. On the couch, Luke Carter, 34, rugged, a single father with worry lines far deeper than his age, sat with his little daughter asleep in his lap, her head resting against his chest. He stared blankly at the flickering coals when suddenly the desperate sound of knocking broke through the storm. 3 rapid, frantic pounds. Then another. Luke frowned, rose, and opened the door, and froze. Standing there, drenched to the bone, her designer coat plastered to her trembling frame, was none other than Isabella Grant, the CEO of the massive corporation that had fired him 6 months ago. Her lips trembled. Her eyes, usually sharp and commanding, were filled with fear. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking, "can I come in?" Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every click helps us spread stories that warm hearts and heal souls. Luke didn't speak for several seconds. The storm roared behind her, wind tugging at her soaked hair. It was surreal. The same woman who'd once signed his dismissal papers with a pen worth more than his rent, now standing on his porch begging for shelter. He finally stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze." She stumbled in, shivering violently. The cabin was small, just a fireplace, a couch, a table, and a little kitchen corner. Luke grabbed a towel and handed it to her. Isabella's fingers were pale and trembling as she wiped her face, murmuring a quiet thank you. Her voice, once filled with authority, now barely carried a whisper. Luke didn't ask why she was there. Not yet. He just turned and knelt near the fireplace, feeding in wood, coaxing the flames back to life. For a few moments, only the crackle of fire and the rhythm of rain filled the silence. Then she spoke again. "You must hate me." Luke's hands paused mid-motion. "What makes you say that?" She swallowed hard, eyes staring into the growing flames. "Because I ruined your life." He didn't answer. The truth was she had. 6 months ago, Luke had been one of the most skilled mechanical engineers at Grant Industries. But after an internal restructuring, Isabella had been forced to make cuts. His position was among them. The loss had crushed him. With a young daughter to care for and no savings left, he'd moved to this remote cabin his late father once owned, patching old cars for cash and raising Emma in peace. But seeing Isabella now, so small, so human, so unlike the cold figure he remembered, stirred something unexpected in him. As she warmed her hands near the fire, he noticed her expression, a mix of exhaustion and grief. "What happened to you?" he finally asked. Her eyes glistened. "My car skidded off the road up the hill. I was driving from the airport to attend a board meeting. The driver left me halfway after the engine broke down. I tried walking, but then the storm started. My phone died." She gave a soft, bitter laugh. "Some CEO, can't even survive one rainstorm." Luke offered her a cup of hot tea, the last of his stock. "You'll survive," he said quietly. "People usually do when they stop trying to control everything." For a long while, neither spoke. Then Emma stirred, her sleepy voice breaking the tension. Daddy? The little girl sat up, her curls messy, her big brown eyes blinking. Who's that lady? Isabella's lips parted. The innocence of the question hit her harder than expected. I'm just someone who needed help, she said softly. Emma smiled drowsily. Daddy always helps people. Luke's gaze flickered to Isabella, and for a fleeting second she saw warmth in his eyes. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. The hours passed. The storm grew louder, rattling the walls. The temperature plummeted, and despite the fire, the cold seeped in. Isabella sat close to the fireplace, her hands trembling again. Luke noticed. You're freezing. I'll be fine, she said weakly, rubbing her arms. But he could see she wasn't. Her lips had turned pale, and her whole body shivered. He grabbed a thick wool blanket and handed it to her. Here. She took it, but her voice faltered. It's not enough. The cold, it's still getting through. She looked at him hesitantly, her pride visibly crumbling. Can I slip under your blanket? Just until it warms up. Luke froze. The air grew heavier, not from tension, but from something more complicated, an unspoken past, fragile present, and the vulnerability of two people who'd once been on opposite ends of power. He saw her eyes wide and sincere, stripped of her CEO armor. Without a word, he nodded. She slid under the blanket beside him on the floor by the fire, their shoulders brushing. The warmth spread slowly, awkwardly, but real. The silence stretched soft, intimate, uneasy. She whispered, I've never felt this small before. Luke looked into the flames. Sometimes life has to break us before we understand people who were already broken. Her throat tightened. You mean you? I mean everyone. She turned toward him, her eyes filling with tears. You were one of my best engineers. I didn't want to let you go, but the board demanded cuts, and you chose to protect your company, Luke finished quietly. Not people. Her tears fell then, silently.